Hey people of VC, it's Andy Cloudy Mulder. Here today to revisit an old series that I used to do. Called well, originally it was called Three Random Records, and then I changed the name to From the Vault. Um, this thread playlist, all the episodes included, was basically me showing off the records that are in my collection, heavy metal records that were in my collection prior to starting to show updates and new pickups on the VC. As it happened, there were 150 of them. I randomly assigned them all a number between 1 and 150, and then asked you, the paying audience, to just throw numbers at me. And each episode, I would pick three people that had responded with a number, and yeah, just show the records that are associated with that number. So it was a play on the old random records concept, and it was an opportunity to show some records I hadn't shown, and also give some shout outs to some of your channels out there as well. I started this back in January 2016, and the last time I did an episode for this, which was episode 17, was back in January of this year, and it all kind of fizzled out. And I think what happened really was I wasn't getting as many views, and it'd been the time when I was in the VC for just over a year, and Chris at Final Transmission in one of his recent videos was talking about that year-long itch where we tend to lose a number of VCers. Um, and I found that even though in my update videos, I tend to show 80s records that I've picked up, and I get a good amount of views on those. I'm really happy that people seem to enjoy those. But then when I was showing random records, I was still showing 80s records, and it obviously didn't click as well with the people that were watching, and the views were right down. And in fact, when I stopped calling it Three Random Records and called it From the Vault, the number of views jumped up as well. So clearly people don't really like random record series that well. But what am I doing here? Well, it's Christmas, so I thought I'd do a Christmas special. Um, I had three episodes planned out, or people had provided me with enough numbers to do three more episodes, and I just never got around to doing them. So what I hope to do today is to show the 9 records associated with those three episodes, and either draw a line under this series once and for all, or pause for thought and think about how I can maybe revamp it in 2018. So as I said, the concept was I would do an episode, I would show three records, ask for a new set of numbers in the comments below. There was a blog post page I set up, which is still in existence. There will be a link below. Have a look on that, and it's pretty much find a number in the big grid that hasn't been selected so far, and people pop that number in the comments. I allocate that number to you, and it sourced the records that I will show for the next video. Anyway, I'll just repeat myself now. So what I'm going to do is so I did 17 episodes in the can, all published. Episode 18 would have been these three records. So number 35 was selected by our friend Heavy Thrasher, I think he calls himself, at Nasty Metals production channel. Great guy, steadily built up his channel slowly but surely over certainly the couple of years that I've been with the VC. He does a lot of album reviews, and I quite like his opinion on some of the records. I don't necessarily comment on a lot of the videos he does, certainly the reviews, because more often than not I don't know the albums, but a few of them I've picked up some great new music from him. So everybody I mentioned channel wise, again, there'll be a link below. Please go and check them out if you haven't already. So you chose number 35, and the record associated with 35 was a 7-inch single, and that was Slade for Runaway. Look at the this was my teenage numbering system of my singles. A nice bit of biro number in the front and a number on it. So this was the 6th single I had. So this came out in 1984. So I was about 13 when I was dealing with my records in this bit. So I take this off, it's too hot. Heavy Christmas. So yeah, so Runaway with One Track Mind. Sorry, 2-track stereo, 1-track mind on the flip side. This was from the Keep Your Hands Off My Power Supply album. Slade, this is actually the only one of 2 Slade singles I had, so I was aware of the Christmas song that they had, that everybody's aware of. And when this came out, I loved it, and I played this to death. This was really before I'd got the metal bug, and it's a rubbish song, really. It's nonsensical lyrics, and it probably stopped me from checking out anything to do with Slade. And since I've joined the VC, I know quite a few people are showing quite a bit of Slade and talk about them quite fondly. Certainly a lot of people in the States. But that was when I dipped my toe in the water, played it to death, lost interest in Slade after that. So thank you, Nasty Metal Productions, for that one. The next one in episode 18 would have been, and this shows how long ago it goes. This was Mike Allen, who's now since changed his name to Metal Mickey, and you chose number 97 in episode 18, and that corresponded to Motorhead Orgasmatron. So this is 1986. It's the 7th studio album from Motorhead. Their first as a 4-piece, so it is Lemmy, obviously, on vocals and bass, Phil Campbell, who joined and then stayed with Motorhead until right till the end, Wurzel on the guitar, and Pete Gill, formerly of Saxon. This was the first studio album that he was involved in. I think it's the only studio album he was on as well. Great songs on here. Actually, it's I've read what I've read up on this. People say it's probably one of their weaker albums, but I love it. I love songs like Death Forever, The Claw, Mean Machine, Dr. Rock, and Orgasmatron. Great album. So that was number 97. Thanks, Mike, Metal Mickey, for playing along. So what would have closed out episode 18? That would have been Saxon Power and Glory. Now this was number 107, and that was chosen by Jake Harris. Now Jake, where are you, man? Jake is one of those the people I used to really enjoy his videos. He was a fairly frequent, but not too frequent poster of videos, into his rock and metal, and he just doesn't seem to show. He just doesn't seem to do videos or really comment anymore. So hopefully he's just taking a short break, and he will be back with us again in the future. Well, so yeah, this is what 1983 on Carrera Records. This is still early Saxon to me. This still has it's the classic type of songs that Saxon were doing when they first started out with the sort of the new wave of British heavy metal sound. But this is a lot better produced than any of their early albums. They've kind of lost a bit of that rawness, which may be why I don't like it as much as some of the earlier ones. But this is still a very, very solid album. This is the first album that drummer Nigel Glocker. There's a lineup, we'll see. Nigel Glocker's first album. He's with the band now still, but he's currently on his third shift with the band. Yeah, 5th Saxon studio album. Excellent. I really enjoyed spinning this again. And actually, this is one good thing that I always loved with this series personally was I didn't necessarily know what was going to come up, because you guys were picking the numbers, and the numbers were allocated randomly. So it's been really good for me to pick out these albums. And some of these I've not played in 2, 3, maybe more years. So it's been great to catch up with that. So that was episode 18. I want to follow that up with episode 19, funnily enough. And 3 more picks. And in fact, I remember at the time, Mike Allen, I don't think he quite got the instructions about leaving one number. He left 2 or 3, so I spread his picks out over a number of episodes to make sure I had them all sorted. So he shows up again in episode 19 with pick number 12. And number 12 is another single, and this is the white vinyl edition of I Am the Law by Anthrax, live. So these were live at the Hammersmith Odeon They were BBC Friday Rock Show sessions, I believe, and I Am the Law from the classic Anthrax album Among the Living, obviously the song about Judge Dredd. On the flip side were Buddy Love Bomb and Satan's Lounge Band, and a live version of Madhouse. So yeah, not going to mention Mike's channel again, because you've already had one shout out, which is quite enough for you, Mike, I think. Next up, 68. So this was, at the time the number was left, this was left by a guy called Joe Rocker. So Joe's in the VC, he's posted very little, and his channel is now actually called Vinyl Rules. I had to go and look that up, but he's still around. He just doesn't post many videos. In fact, the last video I could see was he did a room tour back in July, which was pretty cool. That video is still up if you want to go and check that out. And you chose number 68, Joe, and that really surprised me when I saw what album it was, because it is Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. And the reason why this really surprised me is this isn't really my record. It was my sister's record. Now, I don't think there's any way on earth that she would claim ownership of it now, or maybe even claim that she ever owned it. But yeah, so this is what, 1977 on CBS, Meatloaf's first album. I kind of nicked off it. At the time, I played this to death. I was kind of obsessed by the song Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and I play that over and over and over and over again. And I played it this week, the album, and if you'd have asked me before this week what I would have thought about it, I would have just said overrated. Not that I can't stand the album, I just never want to listen to it again, but I did listen to it and I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest with you. So that was a real blast for the past, going back and having a good listen to this. So there we go. Joe, thank you. Number 68. Next up on episode 19. 6758 Pazzy. Hey Pazzy, I don't know if you ever remember leaving this number, but you left number 114. And this is one of my favorite records. Again, it's a single, but it's a 12-inch this time. And 114 on the randomizer is Women in Uniform by Iron Maiden, a song that the Iron Maiden always come out and said that they didn't like. The producer they got in, I can't for life remember his name, he worked with AC/DC apparently, went off and fiddled with everything, much to Steve Harris's disdain, and since this they've never allowed anyone to mess with their music again. Yeah, 1980, brilliant cover, always love the cover. Margaret Thatcher looking to ambush Eddie and a couple of his ladies. Women in Uniform was originally a song by an Australian band called the Skyhooks, but what they've done here is it's not a straight cover. They've reworked some of the lyrics, and I have heard the original, and I just love this. This is one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs, and they didn't even write it. We also have Invasion on the A side, and on the flip side there's a live version of Phantom of the Opera, recorded live at the Marquee, London, July the 4th, 1980. So it's Paul Di'Anno's on vocals, and it's a really good version of Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, there we go. Women in Uniform. So thanks for that, Pazzy. Sorry it took so long to get around to it. Only about a year. There we go. We'll get there in the end on this channel. So that was episode 19. I'm flying through these a lot quicker than I would have done if I'd done them in individual episodes, and hey, you know, maybe that's actually a good thing in the long run. Maybe people will watch. So that leaves just 3 left, 3 outstanding, and I can kind of settle my account on this series maybe. So episode 20 was brought to me again by Joe Rocker. What's his channel name again? Vinyl Rules, sorry. So Joe Rocker, Vinyl Rules, Scott Waters, No Life Till Metal, and Mike Allen again. Pops up everywhere, doesn't he? Joe Rocker, Vinyl Rules, number 22. Now this was a killer one. This one I'd kind of forgotten I had, and I certainly couldn't remember really what it sounded like. So I wasn't really into Twisted Sister back in the day. I knew about them, I knew some of their classic songs, but this album I picked up just after I started collecting vinyl again, so around sort of early 2015, and I just haven't played it for a few years, and I've kind of forgotten how damn good it is. I really like early Twisted Sister. They're just very sort of rock and roll meets heavy metal, and despite the Dee Snider theatrics on the front, they don't really sound like a glam metal band. Glam metal wasn't really around in, well, this is 1982. This is actually Italian pressing, sorry, which I didn't realise until again I got it out and started looking at it. Lyrics from Inner, and it's on the Secret label. And it's a great album. I put this on and I played it sort of 2 or 3 times back to back. What You Don't Know, Sin After Sin, Shoot 'Em Down, Under the Blade, even Bad Boys of Rock and Roll, which is a real kind of sing-along song on the album. Really, really good stuff. So it was great to be able to kind of reconnect with this one. So thank you, Joe. So that was number 22. I said next. So yeah, so Scott Waters. Everybody knows Scott Waters. Having a lot of success with his own record label at the moment. Again, a link below, but you probably know it already. And Your Number, I'm sure you remember, Scott, and I'm sure you've been waiting with bated breath for the last 11 or 12 months to find out what it is. And it's a single, and it is The Trooper. Again, you can tell it's one of my original teenage ones, because this is number 2. You see, you can't fault this filing system. You see, I'll never forget that was number 2, even though it's turned out to be number 70 in the rejig numbers. But yeah, this was the first ever metal single I bought, the first ever metal record I remember hearing on the radio, and not being able to understand why not everybody was going as crazy about it as I was. That's not the big news side of it. Because I'd kind of read the cover, I did come across another copy with a better cover, but I'm just kind of keeping the NAF one, really just for nostalgic reasons. It's got Cross-Eyed Mary on the flip side. This is from the Peace of Mind album. The song is written about the charge of the Light Brigade, the Crimean War, and it's just a classic Maiden song. I don't think they ever play a gig without playing this song now. So number 70, a record that will always be close to my heart, because it put me on this fantastic journey, which is heavy metal. So thank you for that, Scott. And there we go. Last but not least for this Christmas special. Oh yeah, Christmas. It's like my my little tree. I'll stick a picture. In fact, I may have done that earlier. Thinking now about post-production, I may have done that earlier. You may already have seen the picture up there for most of the video, so which makes this bit sound completely ridiculous, but there we go. So I've got my Christmas tree up with my heavy Christmas balls. I had my hat, which is just a wee bit too small for my big fat head, and I've couldn't find any Christmas ale, but I'm having a strong and bold Scotch Old Jock. Great stuff. The hairs on your chest. So we're at the end of all the numbers that were picked when this thread and series was active. So I kind of feel that I'm at a point now where we can decide what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do with this series going forward. But without further ado, it's Mike Allen again. This kind of shows how people was kind of, I think, had fallen off the fact that people were requesting multiple numbers and I needed to fill out the series. So, one of my all-time favorite albums, and I think is a little bit maligned these days. I think people are too over familiar with it, so tend to find faults where they aren't necessarily there anymore. 1986, Metallica's third album, Master of Puppets. This is an original 86 UK pressing on the wonderful Music for Nations, and you won't hear me finding fault with any of this. I love it. You'll get people that say it's not really a thrash album, it's not really this, it's not really that, or it's overplayed, it's overhyped. I'm not buying any of that. I don't care. You can call it thrash, you can call it speed metal, you can call it heavy metal, you can call it what you like. I just call it an absolutely fantastic album, an album that gripped me as a teenager and still grips me today. I know it so well, but I still play it regularly. I mean, if you look back on my Instagram for the last couple of years, you'll see it pop up occasionally. There's some albums you'll just see pop up once, and then you probably won't see them again for a few years. But this one pops up at least once or twice a year on there. And when you do those top 9 things on Instagram, I'm pretty sure that this one will pop up under the likes as well. So there are some other people out there like me that still hold this high up on a pedestal. So there we go. I'm not going to tell you which songs I particularly like or dislike, because I just love the whole album, even the slower bits, even the long drawn out bits. I'm very, very happy with this, and I can't see it being a point where I've played it too much. So there we go. 3 episodes in one, my Christmas special from the vault. So what are we going to do now? A lot of you that watch my videos now that I interact with, I've got to know since I stopped doing this thread. So maybe there's some people out there who would like to, maybe we should give this a go. I think I will change out the format. I won't. I don't think I'll limit it to 3 records. What I think I'll do is invite you guys that are watching, or girls that are watching, to check out the blog post link below. Find a number that's not been allocated. Just leave it in the comments below. You don't have to leave a comment of any a long comment. I think you can just stick a number in there if you want, and I will allocate that number to you. If 2 people pick the same number, I will allocate it to the first one that I see, and then get back to you and say pick another one. And I will try and do maybe one of these a month. Try and get that sort of commitment. My New Year's resolution, I will try and do one of these a month, and I'll try and keep them to about 15 minutes max, and I'll try and fit in as many as I can in those 15 minutes. If I get less than 3 numbers, I will kind of consider the series dead, and I will bear no grudge at all, because at the moment I feel like I've met my obligation to those of you who took the time out to comment back in January and before. So all that leaves me to say is wish everybody out there a very happy Christmas. Hope you have a great holiday period, and I'll see you in the new year, or maybe even between Christmas and New Year, because I've got a few days off and a few ideas of things I want to close out the year with. So thanks for watching. Check the blog post. Leave a number if you want to see this carry on. Don't leave a number if you want it to die. Cheers. Bye.